Welcome to Screen Watching, everyone. I am Simon Foster. I will be joined very soon by one Dan Barrett, which I do believe is his real name. It has been a crazy week in the world of screen watching. Things are moving very fast. We are going to have a look at the current state of affairs with the Warner Brothers sale. As we record this, there's a whole lot of things going on. It's a little crazy. As part of the fun, we're going to list our Mount Rushmore of Warner Brothers properties. What are the four faces we'd put on the side of a mountain that best represent our experience living and loving Warner Brothers as they fade into the sunset? Who knows how that's going to go? I'm going to be chatting about a film called The Testament of Anne Lee. I have got some choice words to say about that. Did I love it? Did I hate it? We're about to find out. Dan will be reviewing CIA, a new Paramount Plus TV series, which looks to be one of his sort of things, a procedural with a lot of cool guys in nice suits running around. In our chitter-chatter section, we're going to be talking Scream 7. We're going to be talking Love Story. Dan has checked out Scrubs, the return of, is it JD? I think that's his name. I didn't watch a lot of Scrubs. Had some funny moments, I guess. Does it still have funny moments? Who the hell knows? The Bluff, The Lost Bus, some thoughts on kids' films from Mr. Fatherman Dan. What a busy week on screen watching. Let's get to it.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Warner Brothers have a stable, as they say in the biz, of properties that who knows where they're going to go as time goes on. As we record this, as I mentioned previously, it's nuts out there. The man who can bring you up to speed on everything Warner Brothers and everything TV and a little bit of film. He's not that interested, but he does put in the effort. Is one Dan Barrett. Hello, Dan.
I like the way you've introduced me here, where you're like, oh, the man who's out there, because it's nuts out there. And I feel as though I'm supposed to be doing this, like wearing a rain jacket and like having some sort of crazy wind coming at me. And it's like, Simon, the intensity of the business news is intense.
We need you outside the Warner's gates, just sort of saying, here at Warner's, people are, and people behind you running out with their backs on fire or something. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, look, it has been a big morning. We are recording this Australian time, Friday, 11:50 a.m. on the 27th of February, the day that Warner Brothers has died.
Jesus Christ, keep it light, Dan. Really? Is that really what's going on?
Look, things are glum.
Okay.
I can certainly say that. Look, so we don't know what this means yet. Okay, first of all, we don't even know 100% that Paramount have taken this. Okay, so keep in mind, there are quite a number of things that have to happen. So, as I said, 27th of February. So, first thing that has to happen is there needs to be a vote from the shareholders to approve the purchase. Okay,
Yep.
chances are that goes through. Okay,
Right.
but
So
again,
Netflix is totally off the table now. It's not going to try and match the bid or anything like that.
Netflix, okay, so as we record this, what we know are two things. One, we know that the board have said that the financial offer being made by Paramount is a better offer.
Right.
Okay, a more substantial offer. I can't remember the exact sort of phrasing. Okay, which means that Netflix then had 4 days to match or better the offer. And then they came back with it about an hour and a bit saying that we're not going to do it. They said, thank you very much.
Okay.
But whatever. Okay, and a side part, this happened on the same day that Ted Sarandos ended up for one to a series of meetings at the White House. Okay, so what happened there? Big questions right now.
Oh,
So we don't know what happened there.
Why has he got his, not Sarandos, the other guy whose name we don't mention a lot on this show, thank goodness, but why has he even got his paws in the pie, his tiny hands in the pie on this?
Because he cares about news, and Warner Brothers Discovery have this little thing called CNN.
Yeah.
And so David Ellison, CNN and CBS.
Yep.
Okay, like Trump doesn't care about the rest of it at all.
No.
Okay, and the thing is that Netflix only wanted the rest of it, the stuff that Trump didn't care about. But he knows that if David Ellison is in control of CBS and control of CNN, he's able to then influence it so it's a lot more Trump friendly. And we've seen that with CBS since Paramount has taken over.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm kind of a bit frustrated, a bit upset by this. But On the 20th of March, we get the vote from the shareholders. That has to be approved. So that probably goes through, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So that's still part of the process. After that, there's going to be US regulators, there's UK regulators who have to give it a tick of approval. Okay. And you can be absolutely guaranteed there will be a number of lawsuits that take place based on whatever may have taken place at the White House today. So there's going to be a lot of questions asked about what happened during that meeting. I just looked at a photo of Ted Sarandos leaving the White House. He does not look like a happy chappy.
Good grief. This
So,
is
look,
extraordinary.
there are so many
This is an extraordinary
questions.
moment in Hollywood history. This just doesn't happen.
It's not just Hollywood history, though. Like, it literally is. Warner Brothers aren't just an entertainment company. They also deal with news and information and sports and entertainment and movies and comic books and the whole gamut of things that we engage with our eyes and minds.
Hmm.
Like, this is a politics story as much as it is a entertainment news story. It's
Sure.
a serious business story. Like, this really is like one of the news stories of 2026, if not
Okay.
of the century at this point.
Can I ask?
Sorry, just while I'm just sort of throwing, just
wrap it up. Yep.
very quickly.
That part
so
of it, yeah.
Other questions. So it has passed through the regulators. There's going to be lawsuits. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that can hold this up. The UK regulators is going to be a much bigger issue than the US one. But don't assume that just because Trump is in power, that automatically means that it's going to be smooth sailing to get this past the US regulators as well. So there's a number of big
But the
questions.
FCC's in his pocket. Well, how
It's
is
not-
this?
it's not
How
the
is this
FCC.
going to?
It's not the FCC, though.
Well, who's holding? Well, who would
Sorry.
hold it up at this stage?
FCC only matters if Warner Brothers are a holder of a TV broadcast network, but they don't.
Right. Okay.
So FCC's got nothing to do with this.
Okay.
It's antitrust, so it's all the standard things that would impact any business that are
Right.
making mergers. But the thing is, there's so much crossover between what Paramount do and what Warner Brothers do
Yes.
that, you know, there's a lot of questions that's actually really hard to justify legally if they do give the approval to Paramount. So, like, there's a lot to work through there. Like, so much to work through. So it's not necessarily even a done thing. It may be that Netflix don't end up taking it, which seems likely at this point. But also it seems that Paramount may not necessarily even take it. Like, we don't actually even know how this is going to play out. But if it does, there's suddenly big questions in terms of those two brands, what ends up being the brand that they use as like the overall, owner of the business. Is it going to be Skydance? Will it be Warner Brothers? Will it be Paramount? If it's Warner Brothers, then that means that we say goodbye to Paramount as a brand, which is sad and unfortunate considering all the, decades, if not near century of history that Paramount have. It's like 95 years, I think. It's, it's extensive.
Yeah. For sure.
If it's Paramount that end up taking the lead brand, then Warner Brothers suddenly sort of fall into that. They're not going to run two studios. They're not going to run two streaming services. Okay, like all of this is, being mushed into something. They're not going to make anywhere near as many movies as they were making. They're not going to make anywhere near as many TV shows as
Is
were
it?
being made.
Is it an operating studio anymore, or is it even a distribution label anymore? Like, would they just say, okay, Warner Brothers gets the existing properties. You can have your Lethal Weapons and you can have your Bugs Bunnies.
Well, they're not going to run Warner Brothers as its own thing. Like, it will be one company under one brand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, there's a lot of questions right now. I was very, apprehensive at first about Netflix, and then I spent a couple of hours thinking about that. I'm like, well, no, that actually I think is going to be a really good steward for the company. And for the first time in Warner Brothers history, well, not the first time in its history, but certainly the first time in the last 50, 60 years, Warner Brothers would actually be in some safe, stable hands. But that's not happening as of today. At least it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But again, there's lots of things that can happen. So let's wait and see what happens. And I thought maybe this morning we could use this as an opportunity to celebrate Warner Brothers and think about the 4 Warner Brothers properties that probably mean the most to us, and think about it in terms of our Mount Rushmore. If we're to put it up onto a mountain, what do we think is Warner Brothers? Like, what speaks to us? Like, what is the power of Warner Brothers?
What are the 4 IPs? What are the 4 properties of that Warner Brothers have in the catalog that have as part of their history that you could carve into stone and represent the memory of the once great studio?
Yeah,
That's a tough question. Who wants to go first?
tough question. There's only 2 guys that can really answer this adequately.
Well, lucky we're here.
I know. This is why we called Quorum this morning. Simon Foster, let's go first with you. Like, what is the first thing you're popping up on Mount Warner Brothers Rushmore?
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that the film Rushmore doesn't exist as a Warner Brothers title, so therefore we can't put Rushmore on the Mount Rushmore.
Good call. Yep, I think you're right. I think it was a Miramax title. Okay, I'll go first here. Let's go back to a period in Warner Brothers history that means a great deal to me as a lover of cinema. It's that golden era of Hollywood, the 40s leading into the 50s. For me, the film that represents that period from Warner Brothers, the great studio history, is Casablanca. So my first face up there would
Simon.
be Humphrey Bogart, the legend that is representative of some of the great Warner Brothers films. So yeah, it's Bogart etched in granite, as it should be. I'm surprised it hasn't been already, but here we are.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad that you really went out there and went with a really crazy out of the box sort of suggestion.
I'm talking about this is what Warner Brothers means to me. This is what that wasn't in the brief. They had to be wacky. This is an important part of Warner Brothers history. So yes, I'm going with Humphrey Bogart from Casablanca. And
what are the four greatest movies of all time? Yes. Well, how about we just start with Citizen Kane, shall we? Yes.
Casablanca's up there. All right. What about you? What's your first one?
Look, because it's my list, okay, it would be just, frankly, malpractice for the life that I've led for me not to go with Superman.
Well, yes, exactly. I knew that was another thing that I was conscious of when this came up. I knew you'd be leaning into the DC connection and Warner's long history with the Superman character. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so look,
it's Superman.
So because we're talking about properties, and this was the thing that I thought was a bit of a challenge with this as a list, like, do we talk about specific titles or do we think about, like, the properties, the overall IP? And I figured that if, this is the best example possibly, and for some reason didn't make my list, but I couldn't put, say, Police Academy 4 on my Mount Rushmore. It would have to be Police Academy, okay, which would be inclusive of the 6 amazing movies, I guess maybe all 7 films if you really want to talk about it, and then also the animated series, the live action shows, and the comics, whatever else. Okay, so look, I think just Superman as an overall character, if we're after, like, the image to be granite, I guess it has to be Christopher Reeve.
Sure, of course,
I'm not a big fan of doing that. Let's just put it up as a Kurt Swan bit of artwork up there. But to me, Superman. So why Superman needs to be on the list is not only is it a character that means a lot to me generally, as well as, like, the world of Superman. So Lois Lane, I think, is just one of those all-time great characters as well. And, I've got fondness for the rest, but it's Superman as Lois Lane. But, like, I think about, like, the sort of greatness of cinema, and you suddenly have the Christopher Reeve or the Richard Donner first 2 films, and then the rest. You've also got the history in television. So you think about George Reeve back in the 50s. 50s. I was going to say into the 60s, but it wasn't. The 50s with The Adventures of Superman. You've got a great number of animated TV shows over the years.
Were they all aligned with Warner's? Like, was George Reeve a Warner Brothers TV?
This is pre-Warner Brothers owning.
Okay.
Superman. Right. But, like, certainly in the way that libraries get purchased and whatnot, it exists as part of the Warner staple of. It's in Warner Library these days, I believe. You get some conflict with some of those earlier things, like the Batman TV show was actually in the Fox library, and then there've been, like, arrangements made over the years and whatnot. But Superman, you've got the classic TV series, you've got the iconic movies, obviously one of, if not the iconic comic book character, which is also under the Warner Brothers stable. Animated shows as time's gone by, you've got the Lois and Clark TV series. There's just, like, certainly enough out there where when I think about Warner Brothers, like, this is a absolute iconic staple character that needs to be up on a Mount Rushmore.
Fair enough. Good call. Yep, I'm not going to argue with that. I was in my thinking as well, but I knew you'd grab it, so I'll do that.
And also, I couldn't put Superman further down my list because we all knew it was coming.
No Warner Brothers character has inspired or entertained me as much as Daffy Duck from the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes. So I think that period of animation, American animation, and how enduring it's been, both as a series of characters that everyone's loved and that have provided innumerable dollars for the Warner Brothers stable. Of them all, I know Bugs Bunny is sort of the figurehead, but Daffy Duck has been my favorite. So right there next to Humphrey Bogart is Daffy Duck.
Great answer. Because I've got a little person in the house, I've been able to introduce her to all sorts of, like, old school animation and stuff. And She doesn't really care for like Bugs Bunny very much. Doesn't really like for Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know what character she's glommed onto from like the Looney Tunes, the Merry Melodies? Melodies.
Who?
Sorry, I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth.
Is it
She
Pepe
loves
Le Pew?
Porky Pig.
Oh, Porky
Porky
Pig.
Pig. Of all characters.
He has his moments. Funnily enough, he has his moments are very often with Daffy Duck. Robin Hood Daffy, I
Yeah.
think, is the perfect cartoon.
I think that was the first one we watched.
Certainly Duck Dodgers is up there. Yeah, so absolutely Daffy Duck is up there on the mountain for me. Next.
Yeah. Porky Pig, why really? So I'm stretching outside. I'm not necessarily going content here as much as I'm putting CNN up on the Mount Rushmore.
Interesting. Okay, good.
Yeah. So CNN, like certainly I think that CNN in a 2026 context, not exactly necessarily the brightest spot in the history of CNN. Certainly, as we look at where CNN's probably going in the future now, we'll be looking at this as House of Long Times. But as we think about CNN and its role that it's played within the history of television, like it is absolutely one of the defining brands. It's, not the first cable TV brand, but the first cable TV brand to really sort of establish an identity of its own. Like it's the first thing to really cut through to like mainstream culture. If you think about its reporting over the years, certainly I think it took quite a number of years for them to really sort of find their footing. But once they hit maybe the Gulf War, like that's suddenly where CNN really became like the icon.
Sure.
That it certainly has occupied in the public consciousness. I think in terms of its global footprint, in terms of what it has offered in the past, what I think the possibilities are for us to offer in the future. Admittedly, this conversation is different now than it was 2 hours ago, but CNN certainly I think deserves to be up on the mountain.
The next one for me, Warner Brothers were at the forefront of the next golden age of cinema, which was the 70s for me. It's very difficult for me to sort of split between All the President's Men, some of the great Warner Brothers titles of that period. I'm going to put up on the mountaintop because I still can't believe it is a major studio release and that some of the things that were okayed by the Warner bosses for William Friedkin to do in The Exorcist still represent for me some of the bravest studio filmmaking ever. So I'm going to put Reagan from The Exorcist up there on the mountaintop next to Humphrey Bogart and Daffy Duck. That was a period in American filmmaking that Warner Brothers led in terms of its and led alongside Paramount with The Godfather and other films like that. So for me, it's a pea soup spewing Reagan O'Neill from The Exorcist.
Well, you just kind of trod a little bit on what I was about to say then, which is, can we have some sort of animatronic, like spilling from the visage on the mountain?
Oh,
like
so the viewers on the viewing deck below can be splattered with some kind of
bring an umbrella every night at 11 p.m.
Nickelodeon, award style, getting spewed with the sludge. So yeah, that makes every ending at 11. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, you got number 3 in ya?
Sorry, I was just thinking I've been to like the house from The Exorcist. Like I've stood outside, like I've been to the Exorcist steps, which was one of the more fun places I've been.
Yeah, I bet.
It's pretty
Did
cool.
you feel funny? Did you feel possessed?
I always feel possessed to a certain degree. What's interesting about the Exorcist steps is that it's actually a fair distance away from the house. So, sorry, spoiler alert, at the very end, the priest ends up, taking the spirit of, what's the spirit's name? Remember?
I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
It's a whole lot of consonants.
It's not an easy one.
No.
But he like takes the spirit and then like jumps out the window and commits suicide on the steps. Okay, and
Father Karras.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, spoiler alert doesn't actually really solve the situation because there's an Exorcist 2, an Exorcist 3, and many more to follow.
Yep.
But the window right next to the steps, except in real life, where it's actually a fair bit of distance away from it. So they built a fake part of the house they could capture that scene at the very end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I sat at the stairs and I was watching it going, that's a bit of a distance. And I loaded up a video from, I think, the AV Club. They used to do a thing where they traveled around to like real life movie locations. And I'm like watching this video of like the movie and what they constructed like in front of like where the space was. It's very cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. All right. What's your third one?
Number 3 on my list. And look, I think that what you were talking about in terms of The Exorcist and all the All the President's Men and like sort of that great sort of 70s thing. Because I'm a child of the 80s, like Warner Brothers is probably the first studio that I really sort of recognized. Okay, and sort of, took any sort of identity sort of from that. Because I was watching like a lot of like Warner Brothers movies through the 80s on this magical thing called VHS.
Of
So I
course.
was thinking about like my first experience with Warner Brothers outside of just cartoons. And I kept on coming back to things like the Gremlins movie. Like that was pretty big
Uh-huh.
because my parents were horribly irresponsible and let me watch all sorts of stuff as a youngster.
Uh-huh.
Um, Lethal Weapon, like the Lethal Weapon movies. To me, like it's that Warner Brothers logo right at the beginning is so entwined with those films in a way that I don't understand exactly
And
why.
that guitar lick, the guitar lick that's behind
Yeah.
the Warner Brothers logo was amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and so I think about the Lethal Weapon movies.
So you're putting Mel Gibson on a mountaintop.
Let's
You didn't
maybe
want to
just put-
say it, did you? You were trying to skirt around the fact that you were
Here's-
going to make a
here's the thing.
statue to Mel Gibson.
There are 2 stars in that movie, Simon. There
Oh,
are 2
right, yeah.
stars.
Okay, sure there is.
And I think what we're all saying is we want the guy that played the police captain to be up on the thing. I wish I knew that actor's name.
Okay, so and look, I'm gonna back you up on that. My list of Warner Brothers properties here, if I was just doing as Simon really loves movies kind of thing, I had Gizmo from Gremlins, I had the Goonies
Yeah.
kids, I had Beetlejuice, I had Jack Nicholson from The Witches of Eastwick, and I had The Matrix. So they would be my mountaintop if it was just Simon carving the stone. Now, I'm going to go with a number.
Sorry,
Would
I'm
you-
just even trying to picture you like getting
Working.
up there. Yeah, working the hammer, getting the you can't lift a hammer.
No, I can't do any of that. I'm going to delve into your area a little bit for my fourth choice.
Excuse me, ask permission first.
And I'm going to say that because of the cultural impact it has, it continues to have, and it seems to be growing, which is quite extraordinary. I'm going to put Rachel from Friends on the mountaintop next to Reagan O'Neill, Humphrey Bogart, and Daffy Duck. Friends, which was a Warner Brothers television production shot on the Warner Brothers lot. It is, I think, by some measure, the biggest success they've ever had and continue to have. And I'm not a big Friends person. I enjoy the show, but I haven't seen it all. I was a Seinfeld guy. But there's no denying that for Warner Brothers TV, Friends was far and away their biggest success. And I think Rachel, Jennifer Aniston, who I think is probably the one I'd put up there as the sort of the cultural touchstone for when people say Friends, they think of Jennifer Aniston. But so yes, it would be Rachel from Friends next to Reagan O'Neill from The Exorcist, next to Humphrey Bogart from Casablanca, next to Daffy Duck. That's a hell of a mountainside. What's your fourth one?
My fourth one, and this is where I struggled a little bit in terms of I was going through like those personal things to me. I kind of want to put Before Sunset as a movie up there because I love that movie. It was a Warner Brothers independent title.
Oh, okay. Was it? Because
Yeah.
that had a strange history. Because some of the other ones was a Columbia video release anyway. But yeah, all right.
I'm
okay.
not sure. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that was Warner Brothers independent.
Oh.
But then I thought, well, look, let's just play this a bit more legitimately and down the line. I'm the TV guy. I should be coming to this with like another very specific TV property.
Yes. Sure.
My immediate thought was I should be talking about The Sopranos and putting that up there. Okay. In terms of, Warner Brothers TV property, if we're not talking about ER and Friends, then The Sopranos really should be up there. It's the TV show that certainly shows existed on HBO before then, and even iconic programs, be like a Larry Sanders show, Sex and the City is pre-Sopranos as well.
Yes,
the
I would say
Oz-
Sex and the City for
the
sure.
Oz drama as well. But Sopranos, I think, sort of really established the HBO channel as like the go-to. It defined what premium television was.
Was
But there was a show
HBO
that
within the
launched.
fold? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to tread over you there. Was
Yeah, it-
HBO within the Warner's fold when it was screening The Sopranos?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's a show that launched in the months afterwards, maybe the year after, a little show called Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I'm putting it up there ahead of The Sopranos as part of my Mount Rushmore,
Sure.
only because if I'm honest with myself, the number of hours of Curb Your Enthusiasm I've consumed versus The Sopranos.
Yep.
And if I think about Curb as a influential property, certainly up there. I don't know it's quite as broadly influential, but it still certainly has import. I'm putting Curb Your Enthusiasm up there. But part of me also wants to think about what has redefined television in the last year and a half now. Little show called The Pit actually deserves to be a consideration up there because it really has shifted the TV industry quite heavily. And the news this morning about, the purchase makes me wonder what the future is of programs like The Pit.
Yeah.
I don't think The Pit's been cancelled by any means. It'll continue on, but what streaming service will it be on? Like, how much of a position of prominence will it have going forward? Like, lots of questions.
This is an insane time because it could just totally. I mean, how is it? Well, no, we don't want to get into it too much. We've already spoken a lot about this, but how it's going to impact our streaming landscape and what our subscriptions are now worth and how they're going to shift and shape. It's a crazy, crazy time.
Interesting times indeed. Anyway, Simon, we have talked enough about our Mount Rushmore. We also do the business of movie reviews and TV show reviews and a bit of other stuff going on as well. So how about we roll into maybe a review? Do you want to tell us, Simon, what is... sorry, I've actually forgotten what movie you're talking about this week. I was hoping to find it on my screen. Simon, please tell me about a little film called The Testament of Anne Lee. Let's watch a trailer.
Having been for those new here who are unaccustomed to a woman preacher, all that our mother has done. Come nearer to me.
Christ's spirit first appeared as a man, but has reappeared to fulfill the promise of the second coming as a woman. Our mother Anne.
Anne Lee is a woman who lived back in the 18th century. She is the prophesied female incarnation of Christ's second coming. She is the central figure in the formation of a Protestant sect known as the Shakers. Now, I didn't know of the Shakers until I started researching this film and before I went in and saw it. Did you know who the Shakers were?
No. I was trying to find like a funny joke in there, something to do with fries, but no.
Well, they sort of sound like a 40s kind of doo-wop group, the Shakers, but they're not. It's this group of religious movement who came out of Manchester, England, who the key to their faith is that they believe the second coming of Christ is going to be a woman, and that dance and movement are central to their belief and central to their faith as part of what they do in the church every Sunday or every day, really, or out in the woods as it's presented here. Anne Lee is played in this by Amanda Seyfried, who gives one of the most potent and forceful portrayals of faith fueling through a human body that I've ever seen. It is I said in my review that she's a blazing torrent of faith-fueled passion, because I get a bit florid in my reviews when I really love a movie. Yet she remains so fragile. She's perfect casting in this because she's filled with this energy, this commitment to God and commitment to her faith, but she's this meek, frail sort of screen presence who absolutely fills the screen whenever she starts singing and dancing and beating her chest as they do. This is a film made by a woman called Mona Fustvold. She is the real-life partner of Brady Corbett, who was everywhere last year when he won all the Oscars for The Brutalist. Courbet, I should say. Yes, he's a French-Canadian gentleman, so you're right, it is pronounced Courbet. And it's really interesting to watch this because Anne Lee and the lead character Laszlo Toth from The Brutalist, they're kind of very similar, if not the same kind of people. They're driven by visions and this unwavering self-belief, and both suffer for their commitment to creating world-shaping legacies. I've got to say, The Testament of Anne Lee is by far the greater achievement in terms of filmmaking. It is a breathtaking work, handsomely mounted, that conveys faith and ambition and sacrifice in the most profound and disturbing ways. I was completely blown away by this film. In fact, I bumped what many would consider the main release this week, Scream 7 to my later in the podcast, because I just wanted to rave a bit more about The Testament of Anne Lee.
Yep.
Not going to go and see that one? because it's a big screen movie, if ever there's been a big screen movie.
Yeah, look, I saw the trailer for it. I quite like the look of the trailer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
It was clearly an Oscar sort of hopeful at some point. That's all fell by the
weird
wayside.
That never really, none of the conversation ever really sort of builds around it.
No. And Searchlight would determine that it would be an Oscar contender, but it didn't happen. I cannot believe that the Academy hasn't welcomed Amanda Seyfried in with this performance. She's just extraordinary.
There's quite a number of TV shows out there which aren't the sort of shows that I watch, Simon. They're not the sort of shows that you're watching, but they are reliably the biggest TV shows, presumably in the world, really. Shows like FBI. Have you ever watched FBI?
I've never seen FBI. That's a show?
It's a show.
It's
a remake of
about FBI, isn't it?
Well, look, I'm not even going to go into that. But certainly there's a show called FBI. It's been very popular now for, I don't know, a whole bunch of seasons. There have been a number of spin-offs. There was FBI Most Wanted, FBI International. I feel there was another FBI
Frozen Yogurt.
FBI Frozen Yogurt, which is surprisingly a lot more adult than you'd really anticipate. But
I thought that as well.
There's a new spin-off. It's called... Wait, I was going to say FBI : but it's not. They've dropped the FBI, but it is a spin-off from the FBI franchise, which is, of course, a remake of the FBI series from the 60s. The new series is called CIA. Let's watch a clip.
Congratulations, Special Agent Bill Goodman. You've been selected to join an elite CIA FBI fusion cell.
Never even heard of that unit.
Well, then they're doing their job. Special Agent Goodman, Connie Glass.
You're a spy.
Nothing gets past the feds, does it? Come on, we got work to do. I know this is a steep learning curve for you, but let me work outside the box and cut through the red tape. All you have to do is embrace plausible deniability.
Simon, the blurb for CIA says it follows a partnership between a CIA case officer and an FBI special agent who work together on a clandestine task force to prevent domestic terrorism in New York. You may be surprised to find out that in the first episode, these two don't really like each other very much, but by the end of the hour, they have a professional respect as they work forward to solve the various cases they need to.
Did not see that coming. Did not see that coming. Interesting.
Yeah.
Are these anyone we know? Are these any actors of note?
Look, the specific actor of note, who's probably worth mentioning, is Tom Ellis. Tom Ellis has some, cult cred sort of around the place from being the star of Lucifer.
Oh, okay. Yes. I know Lucifer.
Like that guy.
Okay. Well, that's a plus, I guess.
Yeah. So he's around. People
what
kind of
attracts
know
him to this? What? Because this sounds like your pretty sort of run-of-the-mill 8 p.m. on a Thursday kind of buddy cop sort of thing.
Well, it pays him money. That's probably a good
Money's
thing.
good, sure.
When you get the opportunity to be on a Dick Wolf produced TV program, that's probably another thing.
It's a dick
So
show.
this is, I'm sure, a good paycheck for him. I'm sure it's a paycheck that will, run for quite a couple of years. So, there's definitely reasons you would take this work on. The question I would have is who in the audience are watching this program? Because, boy, beyond just being a cookie cutter procedural, it's just not very good.
That's
I don't
unlike
even-
Dick Wolf. He usually brings the goods for stuff like this, doesn't he?
Not really. Broadly. It feels very much like a Dick Wolf style procedural.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There's not really much more you can say to that. I've given you the blurb. Everyone knows what this program is. I can tell you that Tom Ellis probably should be the most charismatic character in this, but he's just not. I don't really like him as a presence on screen. The guy he's up against is this guy named Nick, and I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. I'm going to say it's Gilfuss. It's Gehlfuss.
Oh
He plays
God.
FBI agent Bill Goodman.
Yeah,
He's
stick with
like-
Goodman. The other
He's
one's
just
too
a
hard.
bland guy in a suit. And then you've got a few sort of more, I'm going to say slightly exotic, which means just not stereotypically white people playing some of the supporting roles. But there's just nothing really in this program. The central compelling, the mystery of the week that launches the first episode, it's basically just a whole bunch of ticking boxes of, they found a guy, they've gone on a stakeout, which goes a little bit wrong. There's a bit of a chase sequence. And that's kind of it. There's just nothing about this which would encourage me to want to come back. I wasn't, I found nothing compelling about the lead characters. I found nothing compelling about the situation that's established. And I certainly found nothing that was compelling about the story presented in the first episode. You need one of those three things to click for you if you're going to proceed on with any TV series. Okay, because the thing is, like, even the most you can have a great TV program that has a pretty generic pilot plot. I think about some of my favorite shows, like The Good Wife, for example. The pilot episode of that is kind of nothing. There's nothing really happening in that. But you've got a cast in that one where you're looking at them going, you know what? I'd kind of like to spend a bit more time with these people. Like maybe the next 3 or 4 episodes don't pop at all, and then I can say goodbye to this program. But I kind of like them. I'd like to stick with it. Or maybe there's something about the dialogue which kind of seems a little bit sort of smart, or there's just some sort of element. But there is no element in this at all which is conducive to me coming back for a second visit. And so to CIA, I say bye-bye.
Would I be correct in saying it's kind of a quiet week for new television releases?
Look, I don't know if it's necessarily a quiet week, but certainly the big show of the moment that is maybe Scrubs returning this week.
Okay.
Okay, and I will talk about that in a short while, but yeah, look, I do think that if you want to think about the shows which a lot of people probably will watch this week, okay, like CIA is a show that will decently, like, get a decent audience.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Comfort viewing. I can see that.
And like, it's fine. I don't have a problem with procedurals being around, but also if I'm to watch a procedural, and look, there's a couple of procedurals I do watch every week. Like I'm partial to a bit of Law and Order these days.
Of course.
I can watch an Elspeth. There's a bunch of these sort of mystery of the week programs. And I think there should be more episode of the week TV shows like this around. But there needs to be better. And this one just isn't.
All right. It's called CIA. Where can people not watch this?
People can not watch it on Paramount Plus, or maybe people do want to watch it. Do what you will.
Give it a look. How do people know it's connected to FBI when it hasn't got FBI in the title?
I think you watch the first episode, Simon. And look, okay, this is part of the struggle I had with the episode as well, which is that I'm not an FBI viewer.
No.
Okay, so when I watch in the first episode and there's a special guest appearance by Missy Peregrine, who I know was in Heroes back in the day, but I never really tried pronouncing her name ever before.
So
and then
know
also
Jeremy
Sisto is the other person from FBI that makes the appearance in the first
Law and
episode.
Order. Yeah.
Is he ex Law and Order?
Yeah. He did some time in Dick Wolf's Law and Order franchise.
Entirely possible. But he's these days a regular in FBI.
From Clueless.
I believe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know.
I mean, I like to think of him as 6 feet under as Jeremy Sisto.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that answers that question. You know what we need to do? We need to very quickly get onto the chitter chatter that we call chitter chatter.
What are we doing, Simon? What are we chitting and chattering about?
Well, as I mentioned previously, I bumped Scream 7 down to this middle of the podcast section.
Sorry, Simon, before you go into it, I've got a tab on my laptop here that says Scream 7 now has the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score in franchise history. Shockingly terrible. Does that match with your experience?
I contributed to that. I was one of the first reviews up on the Scream 7 Rotten Tomatoes page with a splat of 2.5 out of 5. So there you go. We don't really do scores on this, but nobody has ever said in the history of cinema the best movie in the franchise is number 7. And I think that, and I can see your head ticking over right now to try to think of something.
Early in the podcast, I referred to the 6 good Police Academy movies and the other one, and that is number 7, Mission to Moscow.
Exactly right. Point proven. Really, the only big deal about Scream 7 is that it's kind of a return for Neve Campbell. Well, it is a return. She wasn't in number 6 because of a pay dispute. Everything that's gone on behind the scenes on Scream 7 is far more interesting than anything that happens up on the big screen. The sacking of Melissa Barreras as the lead because of her online comments, the support shown by Jenna Ortegas, who didn't return to this, the last director bowed out because he got death threats. All of this makes for far more interesting backstory than anything going on screen. Neve Campbell's return. She plays the mum of the new final girl, played by Isabel May. I think her name is. I want to say yes. And a lot of it takes place in and around Woodsboro, where the original sort of took place, but it looks a whole lot more like the Halloween set. It looks more like Haddonfield, and that caught me a little bit off guard. And Kevin Williamson, who wrote the very first Scream, still far and away the best one. The great late Wes Craven directed this. Gee, I'd love to see Wes Anderson do a Scream movie. That'd be good. And he's back to sort of re-energize this, but it doesn't re-energize. This is depressingly unscary. I was sat there, head in hand, shoulder leaning backwards, just trying to find something to be interested by in this movie. Courtney Cox kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting. She's back as a very tight-mouthed reporter, Gail Weathers. There's a couple of good murder scenes, but it's all very reductive and strained and doesn't earn its place in Scream lore. So Scream 7, sorry, and I totally guessed the ending as well. So it's gone the way of the dodo.
Look,
you're not a horror guy, though.
No, but I still Scream was one of these sort of films I watched a fair bit as a teen, and
sure.
I stuck with the things. This is like my generation of horror film.
Yep.
But certainly by the time that we got to Scream 4 or 5, I remember just sitting in the cinema just wondering why am I watching this?
Yeah.
I just didn't really understand the point of it. And then the struggle that I've had with this is that this has been a series that I think's been fairly good about updating the cast every time through with fairly good sort of up and comers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, film after film, they really do seem to have at least 2 to 3 actors in it who really are part of that sort of generation of actors who are probably about to either break big if they haven't already. Okay, they just managed to be right in that zeitgeist.
Sure.
But I don't understand why this franchise, which has been so good with that, has felt the need to hang on to the cast from that very first Scream film. When I kept on seeing David Arquette pop up in these Scream films before they killed him off a few installments ago, when I keep seeing Courtney Cox popping up, I don't understand who's really after that. Who's that speaking to? Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't
understand.
They've got to ensure that the base audience comes back to these films because they're the diminishing returns on finding people who are newly interested in the Scream franchise.
But the base audience for this though isn't necessarily people that have, grown up with these characters. The base audience for a franchise like this should be the new generation of 16 through 25-year-olds who come along to the thing. That is actually your base. It's not the people that have been watching all these films. It'll be like the Final Destination movies. The most recent Final Destination film, which as far as I know, didn't have any cast members from the earlier installments. Okay, that did a huge amount of box office, and it's purely because people want to see that film on its own terms, okay, and also had the ability to then load up HBO Max, RIP, and go through all the old Final Destination movies. So for every generation, all of those films become part of their generation because they can access it. You don't need to hold on to Courtney Cox to make this franchise work, let alone Neve Campbell.
I think you do need to hang on to Neve Campbell. She's very much the heart and soul of the Scream franchise.
Honestly, the reason why
Jamie Lee Curtis is with the Halloween ones. That's what they're doing.
See, I just think that's ridiculous. The reason why I don't want to watch Scream, 7?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to watch Scream 7 is because Neve Campbell's being trotted out again. To me, that is tired. Okay, and this is my star. From the beginning, I was on board with her. And I like Neve Campbell.
Right, calm down.
But I don't want to watch this because she's the lead of it. And bringing Kevin Williamson back, who's that cheering up? I don't
Well,
get
he
it.
can't write for teens anymore because this is a dull bunch of teens. So
Some would say that he couldn't write for teens from the beginning,
Oh, no,
Simon.
you can't say that with Dawson's because he was
No,
Dawson's, wasn't
Simon, yesterday I watched the first episode of Dawson's Creek.
he? Yeah.
Oh my God, it's something.
Classic.
Classic to memory only.
All right, so Scream 7's once a miss. The other thing I want to chitter-chat very quickly about is the new Disney Plus Hulu series called Love Story. This is the a version of the events around the romance between Carolyn Bessette and John F. Kennedy Jr. Warning bells went off straight away when it's Ryan Murphy produced. Fortunately, the showrunner is a gentleman whose name I can't remember, but who has done a wonderfully elegant job in bringing these two people to life. These were key figures in sort of that 90s pop culture landscape. I remember them both very fondly and often think that their passing is not really spoken of in sort of that heightened terms that maybe it should be. Maybe the luster of the Kennedy Empire has dropped off a bit in recent years or has become less relevant, but it was a huge deal, Kennedy and Bassett, and then their passing. The way their romance forms in this is just lovely. And they're both given really sort of credible portrayals on screen, both as, damaged people and people with their own foibles, but also when they find each other, real soulmates as well. So, yeah, I loved it. Love story. I'm not surprised it's getting a lot of good word of mouth. So, definitely worth watching. And great recreation of the period as well.
Yeah, the Ryan Murphy part of it just rules it out entirely.
It's so Ryan Murphy like that. And it was only because I said, and in fact, there's a couple of little bits in it, notably Naomi Watts as Jackie Onassis, who still has some of that Ryan Murphy-esque B sort of storytelling about her characterization. But the heart and soul of this is the two of them, Carolyn and John F. Kennedy Jr., and they're both great in this. This is better than anything Ryan Murphy's touched in years, and I think it's all to do with the name of the guy who's running the show, who I thought you would have got up on screen by now, but who I can't remember.
No, I'm not going to bother with that.
Okay.
But also, I will say that most of the reviews I've read for this have been hugely negative.
No, they're not. They're all good. I've read some good reviews.
You can't say that I can say the reviews I've read for it have all been negative, and then you can say that's not true. You don't know what I've read.
Well, I don't know what you've read, but I think you're focused in on the negatives. I've read some very positive reviews for it.
Look, I just loaded up Love Story Critics, and all I'm seeing is just words being thrown at me like boring and sharply negative.
Oh, well, that's incorrect. This critic doesn't think that at all.
The New Yorker says Love Story is a forgettable elegy for Generation X.
I don't believe that's to be so.
Anyway, I'm not sure I'm going to bother with this one. The Ryan Murphy stink is sullied it for whatever that's worth.
What have you been? What do you want to chitter-chat about?
If there's a TV show, and look, so you said something about the sheen of the Kennedys. I actually wonder if the series might be about like 2 years too early, because there's actually a couple of TV shows coming out over the coming weeks. Well, over the next like couple of months, if not like a year or so, which are like, there's a series which is kind of doing for the Kennedys what The Crown did for the royal family. So that's coming to Netflix soon. And there's like a docuseries coming sometime soon to Netflix, which looks at the Kennedys as well. I just kind of feel like there's just these opportunities where if this had come out after those, I think maybe there would have been just a bit more heat around it. Whereas it's just kind of come out as, just this week's program rather than necessarily being a cultural moment.
Interesting.
Anyway,
on Rotten Tomatoes, it is coming in at 79%.
Haven't we discussed the problem with Rotten Tomatoes as a metric to use? Haven't we just had extensive...
When it's upwards of 79%, I think we can say that generally the critical response to Love Story has been pretty good.
When it fits Simon Foster's narrative, Rotten Tomatoes, we will absolutely jump on board with that.
So one review from the New Yorker that's negative fits your narrative. 79% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes say it's pretty good. Fits my narrative.
Look, my beloved Lucy Mangan from The Guardian gave it 2 stars. She referred to it as a punishing slog.
No, well, I think Lucy Mangan's clearly losing her mind. All right. Chitter-chat about something that I can attack you over.
Okay, how about the return of Scrubs for season 10?
I loved it. This is the show of the year for me. It's not. I haven't seen it.
Now, did you ever watch Scrubs in the early incarnation?
Regular listeners will know I addressed this last week.
Regular listeners will know that I wasn't paying attention.
No. I mean, it stumbled in and out when it was something I'd sort of sink back on the couch and watch when there was nothing else on, but I wasn't the Scrubs guy.
Yeah, look, I can't even remember if I talked about this, but I remember when the show came out, I was sort of a bit high on it for the first couple of episodes, and then I just lost interest. Certainly, I think the problem with this is that if they had done a new version of Scrubs in 2026, an entirely new cast, I think I'd probably be a bit more receptive to this. But there's something watching this program with the very specific juvenile tone of Scrubs, which, if you remember, it was very much the idea that, ER had come out. When was ER? That was
93, maybe?
Like 94?
3 or 94,
and then Scrubs, I was actually trying to find a Scrubs year. I knew that ER was 94. Why can't I see the first episode of Scrubs? So Scrubs came out in 2001.
No,
so the idea...
Really? Was it that?
Yeah. October 2nd, 2001.
Gosh.
So this came out and 5 or 6 years after ER and like a whole bunch of other hospital shows at the time. And this was youthful and irreverent and was really doing something quite different to what we'd seen. It was taking a sitcom style approach to the sort of hour-long dramas, which were maybe just getting a bit long in the tooth, being 5 or 6 years in. Okay, and it felt fresh and it was vibrant and the cast were all cute and fun and, at that stage, Zach Braff hadn't done his Kickstarter to try to fund his movie. So, no one had soured on him by that point.
What a jerk.
Like, he shouldn't have done that. But anyway,
we all
whatever.
thought Garden State was a big deal when
Garden State, that came out. Like, we all love Garden State. I'm still listening to the Shins decades later. I really am. I really like the Shins. But it was a show of the moment. It really felt very much current and felt of the vibe of that sort of post-September 11 era that we were all in. Okay. And I think that the fact this came out just as like DVD was taking off, and I will say that as someone who was in his early 20s when Scrubs was on the air, this was another show that spoke very much to me and my cohort of people. I would go to friends' houses. I would always note that amongst their box sets on the shelf, there'd always be a box set of Arrested Development, and there'd always be a few seasons of Scrubs sitting there. It was.
I can vouch for that. As someone who regularly trolls through op shops, the number of scrubbed box sets I find on the DVD shelf is considerate.
Yeah. But the thing is that the original series run of Scrubs ran for 9 seasons. Yeah. It was getting pretty creaky by the time they hit season 9. Season 9, they tried a soft reboot, which had new characters at the forefront. But then the characters that you know and love, like Zach Braff and Donald Faison and everyone else, were like supporting characters that would crop up every so often. Okay. There was no reason it should come back as long as season 9. Okay. And certainly as I sit here in 2026, I had the question last week, do we even need this in our lives? And watching these 50-year-olds jumping on each other's backs, and it's like, oh, the joke is that it hurts his back now. And it's like, well, no, you're still the same idiots that we've been watching now, like on repeats of this show. Like, it doesn't feel like these characters have especially matured in a way which is befitting of, okay, you've got a challenge. You've got a challenge with a show, which is, do they have these characters as they actually would have matured and gone through a medical system? And so we're watching them as much more seriously minded professionals. Okay. Or do we want to retain a sense of their youthful vibrancy, which is the characters that we fell in love with? And they chose the youthful vibrancy, and it feels so silly and embarrassing watching these characters at this stage in their life.
Yep.
I felt really bad for all involved. Now, it doesn't help that none of it's particularly that funny. Okay, and some of the characters that you loved from those earlier seasons, like Neil Flynn as the janitor, not there. Okay, like, I just don't understand. And the characters that have come back, like there's that guy who, Todd, I want to say his name is. He's the one that drops like the sexual innuendos, and like he's in like one scene in the first 2 episodes, and he looks really old, and it just felt sad. I felt so sad and deflated watching Scrubs 2026.
It does, yeah. You know what it feels like? It feels like content. It just feels like content, and that's just so depressing when it's got a legacy, when it's got a fan base, when it has a place in TV history to whatever degree. Now it just feels like content, and that's depressing.
I think that CIA is definitely content. I feel this has a little bit more going for it in that people actually care about these characters and care about these actors, but I don't know this show is necessarily doing them any justice by bringing them back. I'm going to use the thing that I trot out a lot, which is if you want to see JD and whoever Donald Faison plays, I forget that character's name, it really doesn't matter. If you want to see like a couple of them back, why not bring them back and do an entirely different type of TV program and embrace the Lou Grant, Mary Tyler Moore dynamic of just inserting the characters you love into an entirely different vibe show. Exactly sorry, this is going really off tangent now. But the biggest mistake that Murphy Brown, when that tried its revival back years ago, was that it brought everybody back and refused to acknowledge the fact that the thing that people love about that early TV series was the Murphy Brown character. It's the character, it's not the vibe of the show that people are necessarily wanting to recapture.
You make a good point. All right. If you don't want to watch that, and why would you really after what Dan said, there's also season 4 of Bridgerton, which I know is kind of a big deal, had some huge numbers just as we started recording this. And you've also got season 2 of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, the Apple TV Godzilla thing, which I loved the first series of, and which I think drops as we're recording this, which is why I'm really trying to hurry this along, because I want to watch Monarch, Legacy of Monsters season 2. Did you catch the Mortal Kombat 2 trailer that dropped through the week?
Well, the problem I have with the Mortal 2 Kombat trailer is I didn't see the first Mortal Kombat
movie.
Or the remake of Mortal Kombat. I didn't see that. So how would I know what's going on?
It leans into the epic nature of Gen X nostalgia like you haven't seen in a trailer before, which is really saying something. I kind of dug the trailer. I'm looking forward to the film, which was all shot here in Australia, just to let you know. What else do I want to chitter-chatter about very, very quickly? 2 big movies on the television. This week, Amazon Prime dropped the Australian shot movie The Bluff, which stars Priyanka Chopra Jonas, as a ex-piratess. Is that what a female pirate is?
Is she going by Jonas as a surname now?
Yeah, Chopra Jonas, Priyanka Chopra Jonas.
Okay.
And Carl Urban from the aforementioned Mortal Kombat 2 as a brutal pirate who was after some gold and vengeful retribution. It's big and loud and quite spectacular and very bloody. And if you're just looking for something to sink back to on a very wet weekend here in Sydney, or a wet weekend anywhere around the world where it's playing, check out The Bluff. And I do want to apologise to Apple TV for my comments regarding The Lost Bus being nominated for a Best Visual Effects Award. As maybe sort of a get good for the Apple business because they didn't have any other film that was being noticed come Oscar time. I watched it the other day, Matthew McConaughey playing a truck driver trying to escape a massive forest fire with a busload full of kids and America Ferrera as their teacher. It deserves all the accolades it's getting as a special effects work. The total immersion one feels when the bus is hurtling through the forest fire, and the bigger, broader shots of the fire taking over the vast swathes of bushland are incredible. And McConaughey's really good in this. It's quite tense and emotional, and I really like The Lost Bus. So I do apologise, Apple TV. What else do you want to chitter-chatter about, Dan?
I haven't seen The Lost Bus yet. I've been meaning to.
It's very good.
One.
Yeah.
So I finally pressed play on a movie that I wanted to see. I actually want to see it in the cinema because I really like the trailer for it, but I didn't want to be that creepy guy who goes to see kids' films at the cinema.
I'm doing that this weekend for Goat. I'm going to go and see Goat at the early screenings.
Yeah, I'm also going to see it, but I'll have a child with me, so that makes it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll fly one when I get there.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there, I'm sure. We could probably sit together if my child will allow it. So I finally got around to see The Wild Robot, which I don't know if people saw The Wild Robot, but certainly I think was very well received when it came out. There's a sequel on the way. It's based on a series of books, which is about the same titular Wild Robot, and those are apparently quite popular. I have always... Look, I struggle to find movies that my kid will be interested in because she's only 4 years old, and the idea of her sitting down to watch a movie on the couch is not easy.
Platoon didn't work. She didn't dig that. That was too early.
It's probably the only, Oliver Stone film that she hasn't really taken to.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I think about it.
Very high on Wall Street.
She was a bit more into the second one. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The Wild Robot, I really quite liked, but I was sitting there towards the end of the film, and much like the best animated kids' films, I got towards the end and, get a little bit choked up. And the kid's asking, what's in your eye, Daddy? And I'm like, nothing, it's just some dust.
Good Lord.
Yeah. But, this is the thing, all these kids' films are really emotionally manipulating the audience. Yeah. And I sat there thinking that, look, that's fine, but also I kind of just want something that's entertaining to watch with my kid for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Can't there just be a pretty good kids film, which is a 1960s beach party movie where, some people go to the beach. But I think about those beach party movies where there's no narrative values.
Do you really think about those beach party movies? Really?
Am I not thinking about them right now, Simon?
All right.
How is that not true?
But
I think about those movies and the fact they sort of lack a narrative structure, and the whole reason that you're watching them is kind of just this hangout sort of vibe. And I'd kind of like that for kids' films. Like, I'd like to go to a kids' film where I know that my daughter's having a fun time watching some characters she likes, doing some stupid stuff on screen, a couple of good songs in there, something to, like, get the audience sort of, a little bit sort of cheerful and up on their seats and dancing. And then the movie ends and you go. Instead, every time that one of these kids' films are being played, every parent is leaving the theater with their kids, trying to pack everything up while wiping tears from their eyes, which completely goes over the kids' heads entirely. It's just there to get the parents with their emotional manipulation. I don't want the emotional manipulation. Just give me something just blatantly fun that I can watch with a kid. That's all I'm after.
Controversial counterpoint there from Dan Barrett. That's got to be a lesson, though, hasn't there? Isn't there? It's something about emotional growth, and there's got to be some kind of lesson learnt by the kids in the audience to make all the shenanigans beforehand seem real and worthwhile.
My daughter will watch like 15 hours worth of Sheriff Labrador, currently streaming on Netflix, formerly of YouTube. Okay, and like every 5 minutes of that.
Don't talk to me about Labrador.
Every episode of that ends with a heavily moral at the end, but it doesn't have to make me cry.
Okay.
It's fine. They can be moral. They can be moralizing.
Don't be scared of your emotions. Don't be scared of your emotions, Dan.
Simon,
embrace your emotions. Lean into them.
Just let me be happy in life. Can't I be happy?
No.
Is that not an emotion?
No, we don't do this podcast to make people happy, Dan. We do it to wither them down into frail skeleton forms of themselves.
That's been evident for quite some time.
This is Screen Watching. You can find us on Facebook at Screen Watching Podcast, on YouTube at Screen Watching. Email us screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. I also write a little newsletter on Substack called Screen Space. Next weekend, I will be amongst my Melbourne peeps for my Melbourne Science Fiction Film Festival at Cinema Nova. We kick off on Thursday evening and then Friday evening and then right through Saturday and Sunday. 11 sessions of superb science fiction films from all over the world. There's a couple of crappers in there, but that's okay. Come along, say hi.
Isn't that weekend the same weekend that Goats is playing?
No, the screenings of Goat this weekend as part of the Sony Foundation charity. Do get along and support the Sony Foundation, who are helping kids in need. They're screening Goat all around Australia.
Okay.
Which is what I'm going to this weekend. I'm giving blood this weekend, which I haven't done for years, which is...
if you can, donate blood.
Donate blood.
Takes maybe 40 minutes of your life, and it's good. You get a cookie at the end.
You do? I didn't know that.
A little sausage roll or a biscuit, or maybe you get a little Frodo Frog. Just depends on the Red Cross.
I might go around and do it twice and get more. What do you do when you're not giving blood, Dan?
Look, 50 donations I've done in my life, Simon.
Have you really?
Yeah.
That's very good of you. Do you feel sort of like generating new blood within yourself? Does it give you some kind of uplifting or upbeat sort of response?
Nah.
That's just great.
People can find my musings over at Screen Watching. It's a newsletter that comes out every day of the week, Monday through Friday.
You just called it Screen Watching. Do it again. You just called it Screen Watching.
People can check out my newsletter. It's called Always Be Watching. It comes out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And on Fridays, it comes out with a second email, which is your guide to the TV shows and movies that are new to streaming that week. I'm thinking I'm going to put out a third email today, which is going to be talking about the Warner Brothers stuff, because I wrote an email this morning saying Netflix have 4 days to do this. We'll talk about this next week after they've cinched the deal. But that's clearly not what's happened. So,
premature publication. That was your problem.
Yeah, it was like 3 minutes before the actual thing came out. An email has never aged so quickly. So, folks, people should check that out.
Still worth a read, though. He does good writing. He knows his stuff. As you can tell from the top of the podcast, he knows what he's talking about.
It's pretty rare that I miss things that much. But also, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think lots of people are expecting to see Netflix end up putting another bid in. So, look, there's that. I think that people probably need to know that the seventh movie in quite a number of series includes things like Diamonds Are Forever, which I recall being a pretty good James Bond movie.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah.
I'll grant you that one.
I'm trying to work out what the seventh Godzilla movie is.
What was the seventh Fast and Furious? Was that?
I think that was Fast 7.
Was it? Okay.
I have no idea.
Good one. Next week, I'll be reviewing The Bride, which is girl of the moment, Jessie Buckley, in a film from, what's her name? Gyllenhaal? Maggie Gyllenhaal directing with Christian Bale as well. So, I'm keen to see how that plays out. Do we need another Frankenstein version? Probably not. But
I'd quite like to see The Bride, but I don't think I got an invite to it. So
And come along Monday night if you want. Anyway, we could probably discuss this off air.
Yeah, we probably can. Folks, this has been the Screen Watching Podcast. You can find us in all the places you get podcasts, as well as on youtube.com. We'll be back next week with more of this business. We'll see you then.